Well, hopefully everybody was able to stretch their legs for a minute. So here we go again. And before we go to the final panelists, we're going to do another short question and answer. So here's the question. How much of the food that you purchase goes into the trash? The first one is none. The next one is less than 25%. The next one's less than 50%. And the last is more than half. Wow. Less than 25% is really showing up. Interesting. Good. So the next question is going to be, we have to think about this one. How does composting help with the garden? Number one, it improves soil quality. Number two, it's fewer pest problems. Number three, more resistant to disease. Number four, cost effective. The last one is all of the above. And I see it's all of the above. So that's good. That's good. All right. Thank you all for participating. Okay, now we're into our final session. And we're going to be talking about strategies to avoid food waste and food regeneration. I want to introduce Jen Burns, who runs Access to Excess and also happens to be a Food Champion Award recipient from 2020. She's going to talk about the efforts to divert produce from the landfill. Jen?
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. Hi, everyone. Happy to be here and happy Food Summit. I'm Jen Burns with Access to Excess, and we are food rescuers. This means that our goal is simply keeping wholesome food from going to waste. So our success is measured in pounds of good food saved from a trashy fate. We seek out wholesome surplus food from farmers, gardeners, grocery stores, and other food agencies, coordinate pickups for that extra food, and then take it directly to people in neighborhoods that have difficulties accessing healthy food options, like communities with no grocery store. We focus on redistributing extra produce that already exists in our community, since fruit and veggies are the least accessible to people dealing with food insecurity. Hopefully, you may have seen one of our free produce stands pop up at various locations around town the past couple of years. We work with lots of incredible share partners in our community and utilize many distribution methods to reduce food waste. However, the produce stand is our most effective and popular way that we distribute produce to people that need it the most. The fruits and vegetables at any of our produce stands are free and available to anyone with no questions asked. Since our mission is just keeping this gorgeous produce from going to waste, we want the produce stand set up to look as beautiful, welcoming, inviting, and inspiring as possible. We encourage folks to try new things and to take an extra bag of goods for family, neighbors, friends, and even their enemies. We are intentional about produce stand placement, and we try to eliminate any traditional barriers people experience accessing fruits and veggies by setting up our free produce stands where people just might happen to already be going, like business hubs, libraries, churches, or schools. We offer bags and lots of veggie enthusiasm so folks can choose what they want and take as much as they desire without revealing any personal information. Letting guests choose their produce actually contributes to less food waste and encourages play and exploration of new foods without having to sacrifice anything, including money, pride, and dignity. We all know that the pandemic has definitely highlighted the need for easier access to food, especially the fresh stuff. With people staying home, we adjusted our operation to fit the CDC safety protocols by setting up the produce stand solely outdoors, requiring gloves, masks, and social distancing when needed, and by tweaking our distribution sites. During the peak of the pandemic and through today, as we continue to adjust, Schools have become our most reliable and beneficial distribution sites because we can offer free fruits and vegetables in a relaxed environment to a diverse group of people all at the same time. Parents, grandparents, and guardians, students, educators, maintenance staff, surrounding neighbors, and even people walking by. By collaborating with our fantastic Dayton Public Schools family resource coordinators, before or after school produce stands set up during student drop-off and student pickup have become such a success that we are currently working to expand our network of participating schools for 2022. Whoop! The work we do is just another very small way to possibly get some fresh produce into the hands of someone who might not otherwise have access to it. And that produce might have gone to waste. So if you know of a food business that has extra wholesome food, please encourage them to donate that food to one of Dayton's many amazing, awesome organizations that utilize rescued food. We are so excited to be part of the 2021 Montgomery County Food Summit along with you all. And we're looking forward to a new year of sharing ideas and veggies. Thank you, everyone.
Oh, thank you, Jen. That was great. And I don't know about you, but I'm getting hungry looking at those colorful pictures.
Good, very good.
Okay, good. Thank you. Next, we're going to have Tim Pritchard from Five Rivers Metro Parks, and he's going to give us some tips about composting. Tim.
All right, good morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Just want to make sure. Thank you so much for having me. I'm Tim Pritchard. I'm the sustainability coordinator with Five Rivers Metro Parks. So composting is definitely part of my work there. I help to run the compost site at Cox Arboretum, as well as organize our efforts throughout the agency. And a big part of our composting initiative is to provide composting education for the public, which ties in really well with all the conversations going on today about producing food more sustainably, as well as addressing food waste. So of course, food waste is best avoided by not wasting food, but if food does need to go somewhere, compost pile is the best spot. Keep it out of the landfill. And realistically, that can be a viable option for addressing about 30% of household food waste on average. Make sure I've got control. Oh, thank you. So just a few notes about our program. Our main point of education for compost is a series that's been running for, I think, a decade and a half now. And I took over probably about 8 years ago, called Compost Kitchen. That's a partnership with Montgomery County Solid Waste District. And it's a 3-part series where people can come and learn all about composting, compost-centric gardening, and ways that compost is not just a waste reduction strategy, but also a way to conserve energy and water through the way that we do gardening and horticulture, as well as a strategy for carbon sequestration and nutrient retention in the soil. So we really try to kind of teach the whole system, not just the pragmatics of composting, which are in essence fairly simple, but really go through how to do it. So today I'm just going to share a few slides from that presentation and talk a little bit about some of the key concepts that we share, and then tell you about some of our upcoming programs. So we really try to emphasize that composting is a simple process, and it's easy and it's obtainable, and try to break down some of the barriers that people have, maybe some preconceived notions about how difficult it is or that it's going to smell, and try to just go over some of the easy points to troubleshoot anything that could go wrong. So we start with the basic recipe for doing aerobic composting. It's primarily what we teach. We do go into a little bit about different methods like worm bin composting and bokashi, which is actually an anaerobic process, but primarily we focus on aerobic composting, which is how you do composting in the backyard or for a small business using aerobic microbes and avoiding any kind of methane production. So of course, composting is the business of growing microbes, fungus and bacteria that help to break down organic matter. And you need those ingredients listed on this slide to make that happen. See, next, please. So soil science is kind of where we start in that program. A big reason that I think our program's been so successful over the years is that a lot of people are interested in composting from a gardening standpoint. And more, I think we're seeing people that are trying to adopt a more waste-free lifestyle, come to the programs, whether they garden or not. But we do provide a lot of education about how to use compost for a sustainable gardening system. So of course, this is a way to produce ideal soil for gardening and other cultivation, landscaping, property maintenance, by creating soil that has all the characteristics listed on this slide. Next, please. We really kind of make it a point to discuss native soils, as well as soils that are ideal for cultivating common crops, and then try to talk a lot about soil ecology and some of the processes that go on. So emphasizing soil as a biome and an integral part of every ecosystem that kind of defines what an ecosystem will grow. So a big part of what we discuss, and one of my favorite things to talk about, is microbial symbiosis, and just thinking about all the life in the soil. And this really gets down to where composting and maintaining soils through that method is important in terms of carbon sequestration and keeping nutrients in the soil. So of course, some of you might be familiar with this, but just real quickly, that left picture there is a picture of bean roots that are colonized by rhizobia. So rhizobia is a microbe, a type of bacteria genus that colonizes the roots of legumes and actually fixes atmospheric nitrogen. So provides a benefit for the plants and reaps the photosynthetic carbon of its plant partner there. On the right-hand side is just a quick example of mycorrhizal fungi in an experiment with 2 pine seedlings, one in a sterile soil medium and the other in a medium inoculated with a fungus known to colonize the roots of pine. And we talk about how this is a very common process that not everyone's familiar with. And in natural ecosystems, there's an interaction with fungus that really benefits about 80% of all vascular plants. So I won't go deep into that today, but just kind of an example of the things that we get into related to composting and maintaining soils. We talked about some of the key processes, including being able to oxygenate a system, whether that's a pile or a row. And this is where some people, I think, are a little bit afraid of composting. You know, they've heard that you need to turn an entire row or turn your whole bin over. And we talk about ways that can be done without a lot of manual labor, like using a turning fork or a pitchfork. But emphasize that if you're trying to grow aerobic microbes, you definitely need to provide oxygen to that system. Next slide, please. Water as well is a necessary part of that recipe, and those microbes that you're trying to grow in a system like this definitely need to stay hydrated. And this is the area where I think most compost systems fail and where people get frustrated, is maybe they've started one and it got hot and dry out. They forgot to add water to the system. It dries out and doesn't really do anything. So we talk about the ways to make sure that a system stays hydrated. It's fairly simple, of course, but it's one of those things that can really make or break a system. Next slide, please. Of course, composting greens and browns. Language that's a little misleading, but sort of commonplace in the composting industry and practice. We talk about carbon rich and nitrogen rich materials, and mostly in terms of composting browns being nitrogen poor, composting greens, both in quotes, being nitrogen rich materials that can actually be a variety of different colors, but really encourage people to think about, as they're setting a system up, how are they going to get a good mix of both? Of course, there's an ideal ratio, but there's really no need to spend time calculating that. If you're getting a good mix of materials and making sure they get blended up either through turning or pitchforking or using some sort of machinery. So we talk about the differences in those and provide some resources for estimating the amount of nitrogen content in common materials. Next slide. This is just a basic breakdown of how we present the Compost Kitchen series. That first night is always dedicated to understanding soil and basic microbiology of composting. Our second class is about sort of that pragmatic piece of how do you set up and maintain compost, how do you harvest, what are some common ways to use compost, landscape and garden and general property maintenance. And then the third part, we really kind of focus on compost as a piece of regional waste management strategy, and go back to the idea of a compost-centric growing system, and really talking about how that helps the environment in a lot of different ways: waste reduction, reducing energy consumption, and reducing nutrient runoff into local waterways, versus a common commercial type system that would rely on chemical fertilization. So if you're interested in this or know people that would like to attend, typically we offer this program 4 times per year, once per season, and it bounces around to our various facilities at Metro Parks. The program was kind of put on pause during COVID, and then reignited this past summer when we offered it online. Our next series will be offered in January, the last 3 Wednesdays, starting January 12th, 6 to 8 p.m. And that will also be an online series, just because we're a little unsure of where COVID's going to be at that point. And then in May, we're planning on offering that in person at the Possum Creek Education Building, which will be Tuesdays, 6 to 8 p.m. So the January session is now live for registration on our website, and the May session will be available for registration in middle of January. So thanks again for having me on the call, and I think we'll turn it over to our next speaker here.
Okay. Thank you, Tim. Very interesting. Very interesting. Before we move to our final presenter, we do have a question for Jen, if you're still on, about is there a schedule available somewhere for the produce stands?
Right now, no. We're currently doing every Sunday at 5 o'clock at the Trotwood Library until weather permits. I would just suggest looking at our social media for days and times and places that will be, since we're food rescuers, it all depends. We never know what we're going to get. So we operate right now under more of a pop-up basis. So I would just recommend just checking our social media. And we usually post a day or two ahead in advance to give people a heads up, so the surrounding neighborhoods have an idea too.
Okay, good. Okay, good. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, our final presenter today is Susan Jennings, and she is the Executive Director of the Agraria Center for Regenerative Practice in Yellow Springs. Susan.
Okay, can you hear me? I can see that you can. Thank you so much, Judy. It's been really great to hear all the presentations today. There's so much happening in the region, and it's very inspiring to hear of everyone's work. And especially I appreciate in terms of our region, how collaborative everyone is. I feel like there are several people that I do work with, or that we do work with, that presented today, and then several others that I'd love to connect with after today. So again, I'm Susan Jennings. I'm Executive Director of Agraria, or the Arthur Morgan Institute for Community Solutions. Our organization was actually founded in 1940, so we have been active for over 80 years. Oh, hang on. There we go. Sorry, I got a little trigger happy with my. There we go. We have been active for over 80 years as a community resilience organization. And in 2017, we bought a 128-acre farm on the outskirts of Yellow Springs at auction. So that was our sort of big leap into regenerative agriculture. Tim did a great tee up for this presentation because everything that he talked about in terms of soil generation through composting is really a big focus of ours here at Agraria. If you are doing food work, you might know of how challenged we are in terms of soil depletion, not just in our country, but across the planet. And of course, most of our food is grown in soil. So our soils are really as important to us as water and sunlight in terms of our growing. Here are some of what we call regenerative practices. They're actually not new things at all. A lot of them came out of the practices of indigenous people. And then also in the NRCS in the 1920s put together soil health practices, and they're very similar to the list that I have here on the slide of keeping the ground covered year round. So that means cover crops. It means leaving the excess foliage on the ground after harvesting, planting of diverse species, integrating livestock within your planting, and then minimizing disturbance. So that means no-till practices. So our 4 focus areas on Agraria are conservation, education, research, and support of the local food system. I'm just going to give you a brief snapshot of our work. If you're interested in learning more, you can certainly find us online, and we also run conferences and do regular workshops. So in terms of conservation, we are doing many soil regeneration practices. We've transitioned about 90 acres to organic plantings. We have 80 acres in some form of agricultural easements or conservation, and we have several gardens where we're doing perennial and permaculture plantings, including food forest. In terms of education, we have K-12 education. We work with many of the regional colleges and universities, and we also do skill sharing. These 2 women are 2 of our first cohort of our regenerative fellows program, regenerative farming fellows program, and we will be soon accepting applications for our program for next year. We also do many workshops on different skills that farmers or gardeners would be interested in, including seed saving. Next year, we have a week-long grain school. It will be the first such school in, I think, in the Midwest. So we're really looking forward to that. These are a few of the research projects that we're engaged in. This photo is Dr. Marcus Nagel from Central State University, who's one of our most important project partners, with one of his students working on a glyphosate research project. These are also examples of other research that we have going on at Agraria. We're really interested in expanding our research and about soil amendments and compost, including biochar. So hope we can work with Tim or other partners on this call on compost research. And we do quite a lot of support of the local food system. We do run the SNAP machine at the Yellow Springs Market and also support Springfield Market. Our largest partner at the moment in terms of food system support is Melrose Acres, which is a project that we are working on with the Springfield, Ohio urban plant folk. We were able with them to buy a 7-acre farm in South Springfield, which is a food desert or a victim of food apartheid, however you want to say it, as well as a house that is being turned into an educational center there. So we're really appreciating the opportunity to work with South Springfield on this project. And then we do quite a lot of food sharing as well. This is Tiffany from Melrose Acres, and she was also one of our first regenerative fellows. We have a number of visions that we are looking at. We have up in the top right-hand corner, we have a vision which we should be manifesting next spring to be doing rotational grazing, which is another way to build your soil. We are putting in fencing over the next several weeks with an EQUIP grant, and then plan to do rotational grazing of sheep and possibly chickens. In the middle, you see a compost, vision of compost. We actually recently received a grant from the Ohio EPA to develop a Class 2 composting center. It's going to be right now focused mostly on getting food waste from some of our Yellow Springs partners, including Mills Lawn School. And then our hope is to share the compost with our community garden partners in both Springfield and Dayton. And then you see in the bottom right-hand corner a schematic of a regional food system. And we, along with many other people on this call and in the region, and especially Kevin Hallinan from UD and Lamise Mubaslot from Dayton Regional Green, have put in a regional food systems partnership grant, which we're hopeful that we'll be receiving news about this week. And we look forward to working with many of you on this call, should we receive that grant. And that's what I have. Thank you so much, Judy, for including me in this day.
Oh, no, thank you, Susan. And I've been to your farm and it is fascinating. There's no question about it. So really appreciate everything. We're going to have to move on, and any of the questions that are in the chat box or the Q&A, we will find the answer and get back to the individuals that presented the question. So I have to give a shout out to all the presenters, the work that they put into putting this all together. We really, really appreciate it. And I think that one of the things that some of the videos, perhaps somebody didn't see some of the videos, and they are going to be posted on the Food Equity Coalition Facebook page. So if anyone wanted to go back and look at the videos, that's where they're going to be, the Food Equity Coalition Facebook page. So again, thank you again to all the presenters. There is, as we all know, there's just such hard work going on to address the challenges and find solutions for hunger in our community. And there's so many people that know that food security is a vital concern in our community and have been working tirelessly on this issue. Now, I'm happy to have the opportunity to recognize some of these people. This year, we received 29 nominations for the third year of the Montgomery County Food Champion Awards. With so many great nominees, the awards committee once again had a very difficult decision. After much consideration, they decided to present awards in 6 categories. Now, the first award is the Trailblazers Award, and this year the award goes to Trudy Elder, Chief Strategist Officer at Homeful. Here's an excerpt from her nomination form. Her work includes helping those who have become homeless for whatever reason to improve their life skills by putting in sweat equity into prepping housing for the homeless, gardening, farmer education, and practical application for growing food for the community. Client involvement in the selling of produce they have grown at food hubs, and the innovative introduction of the mobile grocery weekly schedule and free shuttle that takes shoppers to and from the mobile grocery. Congratulations to Trudy Elder. The second award is the Nourishing Spirit Award. Now this year, the award goes to Jessica Wells of New Lebanon. Jessica coordinates the Blessing Box at the New Lebanon United Methodist Church. According to her nomination, Jessica and her family frequently stock and repair a free leave and take food box. She is tagged in multiple posts a week for people with food insecurities, and she always takes time to list out immediate and longer-term solutions for the person in need. Congratulations. The third award is the Educator Award that is going to Brian Faget, Senior. Brian has served as the Assistant Food Pantry Coordinator at the Wayman AME Church for 7 years. He finds the time to mentor, offer direction, and inspirational words of encouragement to the youth at every turn, according to his nominator, Peggy Wynn. She said he encourages the juvenile volunteers who are obtaining community service hours to overcome their current obstacles and set goals for the future. He offers examples of how he overcame being dyslexic and working to become an Army officer. Congratulations to Brian, and thank you for working with the youth in our community. The fourth award is the Community Partner Award, which goes to Miami Valley Meals, including Matt D'Angelo and Bill Evans, which got its start during the height of the pandemic, when it activated a team of recently unemployed culinary professionals to assist in hunger relief efforts by quickly and efficiently preparing nutritious meals in bulk. Here's a short excerpt from the nomination form. When Miami Valley Meals program began, the goal was never to become its own food pantry, but rather to support existing organizations who serve the hungry. This innovative model served as a catalyst to deeper connection and collaboration between existing entities targeting food insecurity. Thank you to Matt and Bill and the entire team from Miami Valley Meals. Now, a new award this year is called the Multiplier Award, and it goes to Mandy Burns, Youth Services Director at the Dayton Metro Library. Mandy worked with the Library and Children's Hunger Alliance to distribute food at all library locations. Through her leadership and coordination, 111 volunteers gave over 2,000 hours of service to distribute almost 240,000 meals at libraries across the county, according to her nomination form. She was also able to advocate to have fresh fruit in addition to the processed meal kits by creating a pilot program with Children's Hunger Alliance when the premier produce was no longer an option. Finally, we will end the awards presentations with the People's Choice Award, which goes to the late Glenn Pickenue, who unfortunately passed away this past August. Glenn received more than a dozen nominations who said it was Glenn's passion to help the hungry. Glenn had a minimal budget of his own, but gave to those who needed more, said one nominator. Another said Glenn allotted his entire backyard to growing a garden, which he tirelessly tended. The vast majority of his vegetable harvest was used to prepare soups and other dishes for distribution to the homeless. Glenn was a living example of one who had the least and gave the most. His legacy reverberates across many lives and inspires others to rise to their best. Thank you to all of you who took the time to recognize Glenn. All of today's winners, including Glenn's mom, Edith, will be receiving in the mail an apron with the Food Summit logo on it. You know, we know that there are so many more people who work tirelessly behind the scenes, never expecting or receiving recognition to address the food needs of their neighbors. So thanks so much for your continued service and outreach to our community. Those are great award winners. So anyway, before we end, I just want to say a couple minutes here about today's summit and share some information about food-related events that are coming up in the next few weeks. Tonight, Haley, you just are everywhere, aren't you? Please join Haley Carretta and the Montgomery County Food Equity Coalition in a post-Food Summit conversation tonight, this evening at 5 o'clock. During this Facebook Live event, you'll have an opportunity to hear more about the Food Equity Coalition and what they're doing and what they're working on, and ask questions about the coalition updates that we shared today. So hopefully you will sign on, and it's at MC Food Equity Coalition. It's all one word, and that'll show you how to get involved. Now, Miami Valley Meals is going to be hosting a turkey takeaway on November 24th. That's a turkey takeaway, November 24th. And it's got a list there on the right there on our screen about what's going on with that. The University of Dayton will be hosting a dinner in the desert. Now, wait a minute. Is that it? Dinner in the desert. Okay, I'm sorry. Dinner in the desert. It's an interactive dinner and art exhibit event on Friday, December 10th from 6 to 9 p.m. at the Hub in the Dayton Arcade. So it's a good chance to get a quick tour of the Dayton Arcade. You know, did you know that this week is Hunger and Homeless Awareness Week? More information about those activities are happening tomorrow and Saturday and can be found at mcohio.org. Been a busy, busy couple weeks. In conclusion, I appreciate the efforts of so many of you who care about increasing equitable access to affordable food in our community. Thank you so much for your dedication, and thanks for taking the time to join us today for the 11th Annual Montgomery County Summit. I hope that you will be back and look out in your email for the post-summit survey so you can let us know what your thoughts are about today's event. So thank you again and have a wonderful day.